Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Community and Protective Services Committee meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. If I can ask our committee coordinator, Mark, to first do roll call, please.
Okay, Councillor.
Yes.
Councillor El-Shantiri.
Yes.
Councillor Deans. Yeah. Conseiller Fleury.
Ici.
Councillor Luloff. Councillor McKenney.
Present.
Councillor Meehan.
Here.
Councillor Eglai.
Here.
Chair Suds.
Here.
You have quorum.
Thank you. And just to note that Councillor Luloff did mention he might be running late as he had the South Nation Conservation Authority meeting this morning as well. So hopefully he'll be joining us shortly. Any declarations of interest from anyone? Okay, seeing none. Thank you everyone for joining us this morning. Of course, this meeting, as you know, is being held remotely through Zoom, which is necessary in these times of physical distancing to keep everyone safe during the pandemic. Please note if you do not need to participate in the meeting, which you can also watch it live stream at the Ottawa City Council YouTube channel. Reminder to participants to please keep your microphones muted until I call on you to speak. And then a reminder to remind yourself to turn back on your microphone when it is your turn to speak. I will provide each committee member with the opportunity to ask questions or comment on each item in the order in which they raise their hand using the raise your hand function within Zoom. Committee members will be called upon first, followed by any other members of council who have joined the meeting. A reminder, the raise your hand option is found at the bottom of the participants list. For attendees, you can find the raise hand button at the bottom of your Zoom window. For those calling in, you can press *9 to raise your hand as well. The committee coordinator and I will be watching for those cues throughout the meeting. The usual 5-minute speaking limit does apply. Members are also reminded to submit any motions, visual supports, or declarations of interest in writing to the coordinator at their earliest convenience. And although the deadlines have passed for residents to register to speak to this committee, residents may still make written submissions prior to council on September 23rd. If you have technical difficulties signing into the meeting, you can also contact the clerk's office at committees@ottawa.ca or by calling 613-580-2424 extension 28821. So as we get started on the agenda, just a few comments I wanted to share to get started. The first item that we have on the agenda is the update on the 2018 tornado and 2019 flood. And the Office of Emergency Management will present an overview of the city's responses and lessons learned for future emergency situations. I think it's safe to say that the city's emergency management team has been very busy in the last year, and I want to thank them for their dedication to our city. And I also wanted to just share a few successes that they've had. I think it's important that we recognize these and that we also celebrate these successes. The 2019 Emergency Management Program successfully received its second consecutive accreditation from the Emergency Management Accreditation Program, the EMAP. This is an independent nonprofit organization which fosters excellence and accountability in emergency management programs by establishing credible standards applied in a peer review assessment and accreditation process. So this accreditation is a significant achievement in the industry. And it also showcases that our city departments hold a high standard in their ability to respond to emergency events. So our city was commended for the work accomplished to achieve compliance with these industry standards. Also in 2008, staff in the Office of Emergency Management were also awarded the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police Motorola Awards of Excellence in Emergency Preparedness for their emergency response exercise. So it was awarded for the Ottawa Emergency Management Program, Ottawa 2017 C3 exercise. Again, I think it's important to recognize this success and this level of dedication. And a thank you to all of the teams involved in emergency management, and your dedication to our city does not go unnoticed. On the agenda as well today, we have the Ottawa Fire Services report, annual report. And I know Chief Ayette is here to answer any questions that you might have. As the report details, call volumes have remained constant and residents are being responded to within industry best practices and council mandated timelines. Ottawa Fire Services, under the leadership of Chief Ayette, had a busy year in 2019. They implemented a memorandum of understanding with the province and the Office of the Fire Marshal and Emergency Management to provide enhanced urban search and rescue program. They received re-accreditation with the Commission on Fire Accreditation International. And they also, of course, provided emergency support during the spring floods, the bus collision at Westboro Station, and restaurant fire in the Byward Market, to highlight a few. So thank you to both our career and our volunteer firefighters for the incredibly important work that you continue to do to keep our city safe. Also today we have Crime Prevention Ottawa with us, and I see Councillor Dean has joined us now as well. Great to see you, Diane, and we're happy to have you back at committee. We do have their report, and I'm certainly excited to hear the important work that Crime Prevention Ottawa has been doing. I do want to turn my attention now briefly to item 3 on the agenda, which is the Ottawa Paramedic Service 2019 annual report. The report shows how Ottawa paramedics have spent more than 53,000 hours in offload delay. And these lost hours amount to a loss of 64 full-time equivalents, or approximately $7.7 million annually. As detailed in the report, the industry's best practice is to transfer over care of a patient to the hospital within 30 minutes at the 90th percentile. Last year, we saw some large delays, over 102 minutes at the Civic Campus, 101 minutes at the General Campus, 82 minutes at the Queensway Carleton Hospital, and 63 minutes at the Montfort Hospital. So these are obviously serious delays that we need to have addressed. Myself, the Mayor, Anthony DeMonte, and Chief Kelly have met again this week with Cameron Love, the CEO of the Ottawa Hospital, and have been asking for immediate action and a plan to be taken to address this issue. I've also extended an invitation to today's meeting to Cameron Love, again, the CEO at the Ottawa Hospital, Andrew Faulkner, the CEO and President at Queensway Carleton, as well as Bernard Leduc, President and CEO of Montfort Hospital. Extended the invite to all 3 of them to join us today. I think it's important to provide an opportunity for the hospitals to join us to outline their plan and steps that they are committing to take to minimize offload delays and to answer our questions from committee members and council members on this issue. So unfortunately, they were not able to join us for today's committee meeting. However, they have committed to attending our next meeting on October 15th. And so because I believe this is an incredibly important opportunity and discussion for this committee, we do have a motion that Councillor Aglai has and will read out for us, a deferral motion to ask that this item be added to the next agenda on our October 15th meeting. And I hope members will support this motion and these steps that I am suggesting. So I'll ask Keith, if you don't mind, if you could please read out the motion.
Absolutely, it's on the screen as well, and thank you for your hard work and senior staff in the mayor's office on this. I think what you're suggesting is absolutely appropriate and the way to go forward on this. We need some of those decision makers in the room so we can ask them questions and provide our feedback face to face. So thank you for making that happen. So the motion is, whereas the response to inquiry CPS 03-19 listed on the Community Protective Service Committee agenda of October 17, 2019, outlined in detail the many mitigation efforts done by Ottawa Paramedic Service to reduce the offload delays, and outlined 3 items local area hospitals believe would help alleviate offload delays. And whereas the Ottawa Paramedic Service 2019 annual report details concerning information about the challenges and complexities Ottawa paramedics are facing, including spending 53,663 hours in offload delay, amounting to a loss of 64 FTEs at an annual cost of approximately $7.7 million in 2019. And offload delays continue to increase in emergency departments in Ottawa. And whereas the provincial industry standard to transfer the care of a patient from paramedics to the emergency department is 30 minutes at the 90th percentile, in 2019, the performance results of Ottawa area hospitals were significantly greater at 102 plus minute delays at the Civic Campus, 101 plus minute delays at the General Campus, 82 plus minutes delays at the Queen's Carleton Hospital, and 63 plus minute delays at the Montfort Hospital. And whereas recognizing the serious issues outlined in the 2019 Ottawa Paramedic Service Report, the Chair of Community Protective Services Committee extended an invitation to Cameron Love, President and CEO of the Ottawa Hospital, Andrew Faulkner, President and CEO of the Queen's Carleton Hospital, and Bernard Leduc, President and CEO of Montfort Hospital, to attend the Community Protective Services Committee meeting and provide important additional information to the Ottawa Paramedic Service annual report. And whereas local area hospitals recognize their key contributions they can make to reduce offload delays in our city, and have all agreed to attend. That's a slight typo. We have to add a D to agree there, Mark. Have all agreed to attend the next Community and Protective Services Committee on October 15, 2020, and will provide members of committee a detailed update on the progress made on this serious issue. Thanks, Mark. Be it resolved that the Ottawa Paramedic Service 2019 annual report be deferred to the next regular meeting of the Community and Protective Services Committee.
Terrific. Thank you very much, Keith. And on the motion?
Carried.
Carried. Terrific. Thank you very much. Thanks for your support on this motion. I know we all look forward to hearing from the hospitals. And certainly a thank you to both GM DeMonte and Chief Kelly for their work in the last few weeks leading up to this meeting and going forward as we bring the CEOs to the next meeting. So thank you very much. Moving on then in the agenda, we do still need to confirm the minutes of the meeting of August 20th, 2020. Are the minutes confirmed? Confirmed? Perfect. Okay, I will just go through the agenda to see what can be passed instead of waiting on longer. So the first item on the agenda is the update on the 2018 tornado and 2019 flood, which we have a presentation, so I'll hold that. The second item is the status update, Community and Protective Services Committee inquiries and motions for the period ending the 8th of September 2020. There's no submissions or speakers to date on this. Is the report received? Terrific. The third item we've just deferred. The fourth item is the Ottawa Fire Services 2019 annual report. Again, no submissions or requests to speak on this. Does the committee have any questions, or is the report received?
I do have questions.
Questions? Okay, so we'll hold that. And lastly, we have the fifth report, which is the amendments to enhance the enforcement of the smoking and vaping bylaw. We did receive some correspondence from Hittenburg Community Association in favor. Does the committee have any questions, or is the report carried?
I do have questions.
Okay.
It's technical in nature, but favorable to the report, just to understand.
So we will hold that as well then. And then the last item, number 6, Crime Prevention Ottawa, there's a presentation. So we will go back then to the first item, presentation on the 2018 tornado and 2019 flood. And I believe GM Demontier and Pierre Poirier will be presenting.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members of committee. Bonjour, Madame la Présidente et membres du comité. Today, we're bringing you an overview of the 2 previous major emergency situations, even as we respond to the current state of emergency surrounding COVID-19. I'm proud of our emergency management program that is coordinated by the Office of Emergency Management and the response by the whole city and its partners working together to respond to these emergencies. It is a true example of the one city, one team vision that we have. Over the past 5 years, we as a city have responded to a wide range of planned and unplanned situations and from a variety of different hazards of over approximately 300 times. Au cours des 5 dernières années, la Ville est intervenue dans le cadre des situations planifiées et imprévues environ à 300 reprises. Some examples of the major situations were the 2015 northern evacuation of Ontario for the fires and flooding, the 2015-2016 Syrian refugee crisis, the Canada 150 celebrations and signature events, the 2017 infrastructure failure on Rideau Street, both 2017 and 2019 flooding events, spring flooding events, as well as both 2018 and 2019 tornadoes, the tragic 2019 Westboro bus collision, and numerous situations including working fires requiring emergency reception centers, extreme weather, or precautionary boil water advisories. And now in 2020, as you indicated initially, Chair, we've been at full bore, all hands on deck on our COVID 2019 response. Over the last 2 years, the city has also escalated to declare a statewide emergency twice, in the 2019 spring flood, and currently we are in a state of emergency for COVID-19. It is best practice to undertake a review after each situation, and each situation offers us a learning opportunity. And as a city, we are striving for continuous improvement and quality assurance, and learning from previous events is always something that we look at. Il est recommandé de procéder à un examen après chaque situation. Chaque situation offre des possibilités d'apprentissage. En tant que ville, nous nous efforçons à améliorer continuellement. An after action report is a tool that we use for the 2018 tornado and for the 2019 flood. We hired an external consultant, Callian, to do our after action reviews. This presentation is based on their findings and impressions of the city's emergency response to those 2 events. We have already implemented many of the best practices from previous situations, and since the end of 2018, the Office of Emergency Management has focused on increasing training and capacity building through courses where participants include both city staff and external organizations and partners. Between January 1st and March 10th of this year, our staff trained 160 participants in 9 sessions of emergency management courses, providing practical training opportunities so staff can effectively carry out their emergency management roles and ensuring sustainment for prolonged operations. Since 2018, 1,325 participants have been trained in these techniques. We have launched our virtual emergency operations center, which has been successful through the use of technology and the effort of all staff involved. We continue to implement the incident management system in all our decision centers. We have also continued to use the council liaison, which has proven to be very effective in previous situations, as a lesson learned and have continued to add other liaison positions such as Ottawa Public Health Liaison and Champlain Health Regional Incident Command Liaison, which enhances our Emergency Operations Center. As of March 11, 2020, virtual emergency management training is being provided in order to continue capacity building, and 205 participants attended 17 training sessions for various roles in the Emergency Operations Center, including our control group, duty officers, and scribes, among others. By continuing to train staff and extending this extended emergency draws on our resources, we are able to add to the roster and ensure continuity of service delivery. We are also use feedback from various partners to ensure the continuous improvement. In fact, during this state of emergency, we have already done midpoint review in order to improve as we move through the event. Je vais maintenant céder la parole à Pierre Poirier, directeur du service de sécurité et de gestion des mesures d'urgence, qui va passer la revue d'examen post-événement de la tornade 2018 et des inondations 2019. I now turn over the presentation to Pierre Poirier, Manager of Security and Emergency Management, to go through the post-event review for 2018 tornado and 2019 flood. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. Bonjour, Madame la Présidente et membres du comité.
Can you speak up a little bit, Pierre, or get the microphone closer?
Oh, sorry. I'll speak a little bit louder. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. If we can just go forward a slide here. And once again, yes, we'll stop here. It's important to note that as part of the city's municipal emergency plan, that we operate under a concept of management by objectives. And this picture here is integral and central to the way the Emergency Operations Center operates, with an overall concept of maintaining public confidence. And if you note that all of the other elements around there contribute to that important piece. And really the idea, as much in the events I'm going to talk about, but also in COVID-19, have really been about maintaining public confidence through taking care of all these other elements. The first item I'm going to talk about today is the tornado. If we go to the next slide. Au sujet des tornades, il y a eu 60 maisons détruites, plus de 500 maisons endommagées, plus de 190 abonnés privés d'électricité, 6 blessures graves, aucun décès et 25 jours d'activité du Centre des opérations d'urgence. It was an incredible event. It was something unseen in our community previously. And if we move to the next slide, I'll just talk about the timeline and what happened in the order of which it happened. It was it was a Friday afternoon, I remember well, and we received a tornado warning, and immediately after the warning was the first touchdown. And the strength of the tornado was significant when it hit Dunrobin. It was an EF3. By 6 o'clock that day, the city's Emergency Operations Center was already operating, and a second tornado had touched down in Arlington Woods and had gone along from west to east along the south end of the city, from Arlington Woods, Craig Henry, through to Greenboro, with significant damage. The city was notified of all of the touchdowns, and at that moment as well, we noted the damage to the transformer off of Maryville and the impact that had. So not only did we have a tornado and the effects of the tornado, which is multiple tornadoes, but we also had 170,000 people lose power, which was significant. Over the next 2 days, Hydro Ottawa was tasked with bringing back power, but there was an important piece that there were a number of people without power across the city, and we coordinated over 3,000 visits, wellness visits of individuals across the city, not just in the areas directly affected, but across the city. And we know it in Britannia, in Bay Ward, there were a number of individuals who we checked on because there was no power for their elevators. And it was a significant event because this is an event that affected numerous parts of the city, but the city as a whole. And then over the next several days, power did come back slowly, and our service transitioned to removing debris, having information centers, and it was a while later that we actually were able to discontinue it, the event, and that was in mid-October. So you can see the timeline in terms of this being a significant event for the City of Ottawa. Next slide. Just in terms of the report that came from Calian, where they surveyed individuals who participated in the event, and they noted a number of best practices. And the first one was the use of expertise, where they actually were appreciated the fact that we leveraged the knowledge and expertise of other individuals. There was a member of the Calgary Emergency Management Agency who was that we stationed at Dunrobin Incident Command. And although he was only invited to observe, this individual offered essential knowledge and experience from similar emergencies and proved invaluable to our response. With respect to the use of liaison and duty officers, it was an important piece that we continued to mature this process. We had communications teams that had someone from the Information Command Center. We had NGOs, the Canadian Red Cross, Samaritan's Purse, had liaison officers in our Emergency Operations Center. We also had several city departments, had individuals in the Emergency Operations Center, which facilitated better messaging to the public. The council liaison ensured dedicated contact with our councillors to reach out for information and follow proper processes for requests. Councillors were better able to communicate with the public at town hall meetings and on the news and in social media. The last one there is the use of web applications. The duty officers supported information exchange and maintenance of situational awareness across departments. And this was really an important piece where we were able to share information electronically. The other piece was the use of scribes and runners, which was invaluable. Since 2017 floods, many people were cross-trained as scribes. During the tornado, scribes were used to support response operations by documenting all relevant information and decision-making at the decision centers and site commands. Interesting to say runners, but runners were individuals that came from several departments, including public information, recreation, and cultural programs, that were identified and used as a runner. So they were a dedicated person to carry or relay information and or products between two or more locations, recognizing that this event affected numerous parts of the city. Also that the duty officers located within the EOCs and outlying command centers were actually able to receive and exchange information and products. The creation of a formalized role within these departments supported our continual staffing for this role. Sorry, just in the last one on the web-based applications, I'll also note that we have an internal software that actually allows for excellent sharing of information. We use Survey 123, which was deployed for damage assessments, ensured that information was reported back in near real time and easily shared amongst various departments within the city. Next slide. So following the tornado, there were several initiatives that the city undertook to improve our service. And one was that we formalized the liaison officer position. In a very important piece where we leveraged the councillor liaison officer to ensure that there was a dedicated contact with councillors to reach out for information and proper processes for requests through to the appropriate channels. And the concept here is that councillors were given essentially a 1-800 number 24/7 to be able to contact somebody who would actually find information for them so that they could communicate with their communities. Improving our community engagement. The city recognized that many of the affected individuals were without power and information that was not available through web-based applications. So in certain affected areas, local community associations and councillors organized local town hall sessions to share information with the public. The city also worked with the non-governmental organizations and volunteers to distribute information concerning upcoming information centers via door knockers. So it really was about reaching out to our community. Another piece was the early engagement of senior management. Senior managers support, and we're really committed to the one city, one team, and to ensure that all departments understood the impacts to the city and the resources to maintain public confidence. With respect to the development of a strategy to increase our operational sustainability, we really did look at how we could maintain the staffing for the organization. And that leads into the next one, was with respect to rostering and scheduling. We did improve the rostering to ensure that we had people almost on a 24/7 basis, but we also included an overlap to ensure that people were able to transmit information. The other piece is that on protracted events, you actually have to schedule time off for individuals. And that really was an important piece as we learned through different events. We also formalized the registration process, where we've been fortunate with the outpouring of support from our community to volunteer to assist impacted residents. Improvements continue to be made to ensure that an easy and organized registration process, including the use of signage at the locations for walk-ups and coordination with larger organized groups. In addition, the support from the Ottawa Volunteer Search and Rescue, Sauvetage Bénévole Ottawa, to manage volunteers was incredibly was invaluable to the management of this event. And then the last one was provided additional staff training. Is that the Office of Emergency Management and General Manager DeMonte also noted that we focused on increasing our capacity to support the activities. So in each of the years 2018 and 2019, we've trained or provided training to over 500 individuals in each of those years. So very important. Next slide. So, les inondations de 2019, il y a eu plus de 1,5 million de sacs de sable déployés. Il y a eu 15 000 bénévoles, 2200 maisons touchées, 42 km² du territoire d'Ottawa inondé. On était pour 49 jours en état d'urgence et 60 jours d'activité du centre des opérations d'urgence. The 2019 flood, the preparation started early in the year. We actually had a task force in January and February that was operating. And just to give you an idea of the timeline on the next slide, this was, you know, when you think of it, it was a slow-moving disaster, but at different times it created a lot of stress because some of the information flows from government and from government agencies wasn't as good as it could have been, and we had to respond quickly at different times. We entered situational awareness where city services start to pay attention to all the activities in early April. We were in enhanced operations by April 18th, and we had already established command centers by the 19th and 20th. We activated operations where the senior leaders of the city were absolutely engaged, and all city departments were engaged on the 24th of April. By the 25th, we had declared a state of emergency, and this was an important feat because we were able to access the federal government through the Provincial Emergency Operations Center, and military personnel were soon deployed to assist us. On April 26th, we set up community support centers at Constance Bay and Buckham's Bay, at the Pinecrest Recreational Center, and also at the Cumberland Heritage Museum. We also established a commodity distribution center at Fire Station 63 in Constance Bay to hand out drinking water and hand sanitizer. An interesting piece and quite devastating overall was that there were 2 peaks of the Ottawa River. And so for the period from 30th until May 14th, we were dealing with high water levels that did not recede. And by May 7th, it was only May 7th that we actually started our recovery operations. It was June 2nd that another tornado touched down, and thank goodness that no significant injuries or devastation occurred. and that was in Orleans. So at the same time that we were fully engaged in looking at the recovery operations, we also had to deal with a tornado that touched down in Orleans. On June 12th, the mayor ended the state of emergency, and understanding how long an event this was and the amount of resources that this consumed by the city. So in terms of best practices on the next slide, it was noted that our public communications were good, and that people within public information and media relations made an exceptional effort at updating public volunteer organizations, Samaritan's Purse, Canadian Red Cross, and community associations on efforts taken by the city. The public awareness initiatives were considered by many to be one of the successful aspects of the 2019 flood response. With respect to the effective communication, coordination and management of volunteers, the Ottawa Volunteer Search and Rescue OVSAR role in the management of volunteers was exceptional. We were able to tap into Ottawa Volunteer Search and Rescue to provide that service. So they were able to help manage volunteers on behalf of the city and behalf of the community. Volunteer recruitment and the appropriate placement where the needs were higher was vital to the effective management of volunteers. Many respondents, when asked, noted that the volunteer coordination was arguably the most visible aspect of the response effort, with residents relaying their gratitude and appreciation to city staff on site. The third item is with respect to the city's decision to call out resources effectively mitigated further damage to property and infrastructure. The mayor's decision to declare a state of emergency enabled a quick deployment of hundreds of Canadian Armed Forces members to assist with sandbagging. This action also provided the public with comfort and confidence that they were receiving much needed help. The early request for volunteers was also noted to assist with sandbagging, resulted in 15,000 individuals providing the necessary support to effectively fill sandbags and protect many neighborhoods that otherwise would have succumbed to the rising water levels. The last one may seem a little bit odd, but GIS mapping was really enhanced our ability to deal with this situation and assisted in our decision making. The mapping tool was an effective and quick method to capture flood levels, water elevations, and identify areas or zones that required a response. The maps were helpful in quantifying the hazard in a manner that the public and is aware of the risks and knows what is at stake. The mapping tools enabled responders to gather information, to gather damage assessment in real time and allow managers to see progress immediately. This was a more effective process.
Hello, everyone. I think we're having some connectivity issues. It's looking like we might all be back. Apologies, Pierre, we've disrupted your presentation. Give us a minute. We will get it back on screen and carry on. There we are. Apologies, Pierre.
All good. Just the next slide, please. We can move one forward. Oh, thank you. And with respect to improvements following the flood, there were a number of areas that we looked at, including increasing emergency management training programs. And as much as we've been always training annually. We recognize that with the number of events that have occurred, that really we needed more people within the city, as in city staff, with a good understanding of how we operate during a situation or a disaster such as the ones we've been through. So we continue to provide additional training, and even during COVID-19, I can relay to you that we've been continuing to provide training to support our activities. The next piece was to define the scribe role in the Emergency Operations Center. And this is actually, it's operational, but scribes are integral to are an integral part of our documentation unit. And the role continues to be invaluable to ensuring that our records are maintained and assist the Emergency Operations Center commander. And they also assist with the corporate decision centers within several departments within the city. We improved our shift transfer protocols. And this was also recognizing that we had to have a good transfer of information. And when they say end the day, it may be midday, where we transfer information from one EOC group or emergency operations group to another. So we've improved those protocols with providing for an overlap. We also enhanced the duty officer engagement. Duty officers are individuals within departments across the city who, in many senses, are the eyes and ears and report back on events within their service area or their department. And we've continued to recruit these individuals, but also to provide them training on what is important and when to engage with the corporate organization or the Office of Emergency Management. So our duty officers are an integral part of the emergency management program. Each department has emergency officers, and they are responsible for maintaining situational awareness within their department, being available on a 24/7 capacity, and also sharing information with the service area. So the information flow is up and back. So they may be providing information what's happening within their service area, but they're also able to provide information from the Emergency Operations Center back to their department. And the last two items are interesting because of the length of the event with respect to the flood. As much as we were in the response mode, we started to plan for the transition to recovery, but it wasn't like one ends and the other starts immediately, understanding that different areas of the city, the waters would receive a little bit earlier in the west than in the east. And so that we developed a transition guide. And the purpose of the guide was to describe how the transition would occur from response to recovery and to outline the end state when recovery operations are fully deployed. The last piece is that we actually had we also developed the recovery guide, which really set the framework and the resources to promote an effective and efficient recovery. The guide identified key stakeholders, including the human needs group, the debris management group, and the volunteer management group, a residential remediation group, and even an infrastructure group. All important pieces that touched on the lives of the community almost as a whole. So very important pieces that, as much as we think all about the response, the recovery really is an important piece for the community as a whole. And on the last slide, I just wanted to pull out Callian, the individual who assisted with the after action report, and their comments. With respect to the 2018 tornado, the city's response was well conducted in accordance with existing plans, procedures, and protocols. And they were very supportive of the city, and their combined efforts of the city staff, NGOs, the private entities, and volunteers resulted in minimal economic and social losses while maintaining public confidence. And once again, I pull it back to the mantra that it is about maintaining public confidence. With respect to the 2019 flood, Callian's comment also was that we conducted a well-coordinated response and recovery to the flood. The level of dedication and commitment displayed by city staff was exceptional and greatly contributed to a high level of public confidence. So those are the two elements. There are two reports, and I'm prepared to take any questions. Thank you, Chair Suds.
Thank you very much, Pierre. Great presentation, and great to be able to share that and to learn a bit more about the successes throughout both of those events. Are there any questions from the committee?
We put the raise hand. We used the raise hand, so.
Thank you for the reminder, Councillor El-Shantiri. Okay, so I apologize. I'm not sure who was first, but I see Keith, Councillor Eglai.
Well, I don't know who was first, but I know for certain that Teresa had her hand up before I did, because I saw her hand up when I put my hand up. So I'm quite willing to let Teresa go first.
Okay, and typically I would go to committee members first, but you're being generous, so I will go to Councillor Kavanagh.
Thank you very much, Councillor Eglai. I was waiting to see if anyone from the committee put their hands up as well, and I thought I saw Eli as well, but that's fine. Thank you. Well, I just want to give a thank you to the staff on the work that was done, particularly in the flood of 2019. We were on the front lines. As you know, I don't live too far from it, so it was watching it every single day and not knowing what was going to happen. But I think the big thing that we learned between 2017 and 2019 is how to move fast and what to do and where to go. And even throughout 2019, I found we learned a lot as we went in terms of just how to get going. But one of the things that I found particularly great was just having those contacts and that called to me as a counselor who's there on the ground, and to for me to be able to call someone 24/7 pretty much while things were going in the absolute high points, and I really mean high points in terms of the water, to report and talk and bring staff in when needed. The amazing thing was the volunteers, was like just seeing so many people out. The numbers are not exaggerated. Everybody came out, and I wish I could scoop up that energy and keep it, because there's so many times you would think, wouldn't it be great if I had all those people back for something? But anyway, I just wanted to say thanks to the team for the great work. I think we learned a lot, and I appreciate that we learned to be better in terms of getting volunteers in and how to set them up. I think that was a lesson learned. I don't know if you want to comment on that, but in terms of people just walking up and trying to help, but we needed to register them. Like there was a process, and it was just, frankly, it kind of went out the window when people just showed up and, they grabbed sandbags and made a line. But I just want to ask you about the lesson learned on organizing volunteers.
Chair Suds, thank you for the question, Councillor Kavanagh. The volunteers is an issue that, and quite honestly, years ago we struggled with, and as you mentioned, that we've learned along the way. And the number of volunteers, there are a couple of facets to it. One is the call out, which really was fantastic, and the councillors, in terms of your networks, really contributed to recruiting those individuals. The second piece is the registration process and ensuring the safety of those individuals. And an important piece that we've noted was the Ottawa Volunteer Search and Rescue, that they became almost an on-site management group of volunteers, which was, and part of their role, which they did a fantastic job, was to actually help us manage the volunteers that would show up. And they also had a strong commitment to the safety of those individuals, and were able also to manage their work level. So we've learned over the last several years, and the Ottawa Volunteer Search and Rescue is absolutely a wonderful partner. Not just them, but other groups in terms of NGOs or non-governmental organizations that have helped us. But the volunteer piece really is key as a community for us to do well. When you think of the labor of 15,000 people, that really was fantastic in terms of us taking care of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Pierre. One of the situations we came across, and this is going to the tornado. I was not hit. Our area was not hit by the tornado except for the outage, not like Councillor Eglei's area at all. But the outage was serious in terms of apartment buildings, and you mentioned it, and the fact that you've got these 20-story buildings with no generators, and that's been a frustration for me of how to deal with it. I've seemed to have gone in circles of how we can make a building have a generator when people are stranded on top floors and have no water, because people don't realize it's not just no electricity, but they can't flush a toilet. They can't. They have no water, and they're in the dark, and they're stranded because they're it's only the buildings like condos. Then OCH was good. They have generators, but I'm still frustrated that there's no way to insist that generators be put in older buildings that where people are stranded for days on end. Because I hate to think we're going to have it happen again. But what can we do? And should we be working with our partner at the province level? What is it? I've tried to find the answer, and I haven't come up with anything.
Chair Suds, with respect to the scenario described by the councillor, and there are a number of buildings that were recognized in this process along Ambleside and in particular in your ward, councillor. The important piece was that when those buildings were built, they met the building code at the time, so they would have emergency lighting in the stairwells. But if you're 20 floors up and you may have mobility issues, that's a very difficult task. I've been in discussion with Chief Ayotte on the issue of retroactive improvements to these kinds of buildings. And now I'm outside of my expertise, but it absolutely is something that has to go back to the building code and to the fire service in terms of understanding, not as a duty for them, but understanding the building code and what would be applied to the building code to require something like generators to maintain elevator service during a power failure. And I don't have the answer. I've made inquiries with respect to that issue on the building code and through building services within the city, and they have started that discussion, but that's kind of where we're at today.
Yeah, I felt like I was going in circles trying to get an answer to this, and I'm very frustrated. And it's only a certain number of buildings, because it's older buildings that were and that didn't, and most of them are apartments rather than condos, because the condos had boards and they did their own thing. But it's the looks on people's faces when I went to see them. This was during the campaign, so I'm knocking on doors, was terror. And we know as a city that we're putting in backup generators for our sewage pumping stations, so we know how important it is. I know that those projects are going on across my ward, but I feel that we need still to do something on that. And whatever we can do as a city, I'd be willing to move a motion or whatever. But I think we still have to fix that, because it still haunts me that people would be in tall buildings like that without power. Anyway, we've done so many good things as a city, but I think that would be a really good legacy if we could fix that. So let me know what I can do, and I'll be there. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you, Councillor Kavanaugh. Next, Vice Chair Egley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So first of all, thank you for all the work that your team has done over the last few years. Rather, it hasn't been a kind time for the city of Ottawa. Lots of things going on. Lots of need for emergency response. You showed a slide. It was early on in your deck, I think, Pierre. Sort of a timeline. Tornado hit, and then blah blah blah. This happened, that happened. One thing I didn't see in that was response time, though. I didn't see when the city responded to the first touchdown of the tornado and to the second touchdown of the tornado and so on. Can you help with that a little bit? Give some clarity to that.
With respect to the items there, I just have pulled up the slide again.
Sorry, I don't remember the number of the slide, but it was your timeline.
When the first touchdown occurred in Dunrobin, the fire service, paramedic service, police were immediately dispatched, and their response was I don't have the exact minutes, but it was within minutes, because the tornado we had some warning had already touched down in Renfrew County. So services were already essentially en route to those areas. And I think what you're pointing to with respect to the second tornado is that the second tornado, and I don't say was unexpected, it just wasn't understood initially in terms of the communication flow that this second tornado had touched down just before somewhere between around 5:30, 6 o'clock. And the city was engaged in enhanced operations, and the response to the second tornado, it wasn't that it was delayed. Services were all responding, particularly the fire, police, paramedics were all responding. The delay was that there was the transmission of information to the Emergency Operations Center, understanding the gravity and the extent of what had happened at that time. So there was an interesting piece there, is that we were focused initially on this event in Dunrobin, and then this second event that cut a swath across the south end of the city there. It wasn't that there was a delayed emergency response. There was a delayed integration of all of the information pieces that we needed to understand the severity and the gravity of the situation. So that was kind of it was a difficult part to integrate all of these information pieces in such a short time frame. And I think that's what you're referring to, is that the Emergency Operations Center was fully engaged for the Dunrobin event, but it took us a while to catch up to the severity of what happened along the south end of the city.
Yeah, I raised it, Pierre, because there was absolutely a perceived lag in response time to Craig Henry, Trent Arlington, Mannerdale, and what that led to was those communities stood up themselves. So a volunteer hub was set up at Arlington Woods Church. Woodvale Church jumped in, and the city eventually ended up using Woodvale for a week, 10 days or more as our hub. The community associations had people on the ground almost immediately, working to help people clear things and checking on people in their homes and that sort of thing. So where I'm going with this is, and I didn't necessarily see it in the report. I wanted to see more that we understood or learned that those organizations on the ground, like churches, like community associations, the important role, because what I think you would agree, what we had certainly in the Trent Arlington area initially was a bit of friction when the city did come in and say, we're gonna fix this, and the existing organizations, the community associations, the churches said, well, we have a volunteer center, we have a list of people, we're sending people out, we've got a handle on this, we'd like to work with you, not necessarily be replaced by you. And we eventually got there, but there was a couple of days where it was quite uneven in terms of getting to that space. So what I would have liked to have seen in the report is in the lessons learned is better connectivity with our community groups on the ground, with our community associations, our church, our service organizations on the ground, because they, very much got engaged. And I know I'm not going to speak for Eli, but my understanding is in his area, sort of grassroots, if you will, people just bounced right up and said, let's get this done, and we're out on the streets and what have you. So it's not in any way to diminish what the city did. I just wanted to see in this report something that said we need to work at that connectivity between the people on the ground, the people who live in those communities and want to help, and the city operations. And so if you can comment on that, like I said, I would have liked to have seen more of that in kind of the lessons learned or the steps implemented going forward.
Chair Suds, an important comment from Councillor Eglai. And there absolutely is an appreciation of what you just touched upon in terms of that delay and the initial coordination with the local community associations, churches, service groups, or just individuals in general. And maybe it's not that so much it didn't appear in the report, but it is something that the Office of Emergency Management has taken on as something to improve. I know in Councillor El Shantiri's ward, we've met with their community association on several occasions just to start to work out how we can basically articulate our services so that there isn't any delay and so that there isn't any friction and that we can work cooperatively in a smoother fashion. And very much a fair comment. And there has been a reach out to Woodvale, the church within your ward, Councillor. And we've also had that discussion of, because they're absolutely committed to helping their broader community. And we've had discussions with them on how we can better articulate when something does happen. So fair comment, well taken. And it is something that we're already working on, but maybe wasn't as well transmitted within the report. So thank you for that.
So if you can keep me posted on that and developments, and if you need any further contacts in my area to meet with and have those discussions, please let me know, because you know, the city did a lot, no question about it, but so did people on the ground, and you know, I think we were better for that. We were better for that, people coming from sort of the professional side, but also from the volunteer side. So anything we can do to solidify that, maybe we can take it offline and talk about it a little bit more, but I think that's really important. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And I see one more hand, and that is Councillor Brockington.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, everyone. I'm a little late to the party, I'm sorry. Just a question to Mr. Poirier. Can I get an emailed copy of your presentation? I haven't seen where I can access that.
Chair Suds, yes, I'll forward the presentation and I'll forward it to you directly, Councillor.
Thank you. I just noticed on the last slide that was displayed, the Hunt Club neighborhood was not listed, sort of a bug of mine that I've had, because Hunt Club keeps getting missed in our discussion of tornado impact. Certainly, I don't want to take away from the severity of West Carleton or even Trent Arlington that our neighbors in these communities felt. The impact of the tornado in Hunt Club was nowhere near as severe. But I just wanted to echo what I heard from Councillor Eglai, and I was in the community when the tornado went right above us in the community center. We saw it come right at us. It hit the Quarry Co-op immediately to our east and devastated that co-op. A number of homes were uninhabitable after that tornado hit, and there were a number of residences in the ward. And immediately after touring that area, I called the city manager and I said, I need resources, I need help here. And the city manager was not aware of the devastation in the south end, because the word hadn't happened that Hunt Club and Greenboro had been hit as well. Certainly, he apprised me of what had happened in West Carleton, and there were reports coming in at that time that Trent Arlington had just been hit, but he was not aware of, I guess, the scope or the journey that this other tornado had taken. So echoing those thoughts, what have been asking for a number of years is assistance in prepping my community for future events where we have to help each other, because our emergency services may be stretched, because they're going to be deployed perhaps to other neighborhoods where they have been impacted harder. And I'm not necessarily talking about a tornado. It could be an ice storm where we have power out across the city. And I'm looking for assistance where we prep churches and community associations and other social and community groups of what do we need to do in the first 48 to 72 hours? What type of help can we assist the city? Do we go door to door? Do we make sure people are okay? Do we remove tree limbs from streets? Those types of things to make sure sort of basic services are met. And I apologize if it's in your report, but that is the main takeaway I'm looking for. As I look, quite frankly, Councillor Eglay, I think the fact that your community came together in the manner they did is a success story. It should be copied and replicated. And that's what I'm looking for is some assistance. How do you do that? How do we ensure that we don't put citizens at risk from getting hurt and adding to the problem of people needing help? But in the time when city resources are stretched and can't be everywhere, how can we as the community help one another? And so that's my main ask coming out of my experience from 2018.
Terrific. Thank you, Councillor Brockington. I see Councillor El Shantiri has his hand up.
Just for the record, I had my hand up first, so just
Apologies.
put that on the table, but that's okay. This is a good discussion, good question from my colleagues, and the last time we heard from when we were at the flood 2019, the general manager Tony and Steve Kay were together, and they said to me, "You had 2 floods and 1 tornado. So what's next?" So surely to God, I wasn't thinking COVID is going to be next, but sure enough, COVID is next. So kudos to staff, and especially to Pierre and his team and everyone, fire, service, paramedic, you name it, public works. We learned a lot from the flood 2017 and flood 2019 and the tornadoes. And just want to caution my colleagues when they focus sometimes on the community. We cannot do whatever we are doing without our community, but the city need to be present. The city need to lead, because we've seen it happen sometimes in the absence of city availability. Some leadership take place on the ground, and not necessarily sometimes they are trained or they are available or able to do what the city can do. So yes, I participate in the report 2017 in the tornadoes aftermath. We met with the community. I think some of this work has to be done most of the time before any event. And I think that's what happened when we work with Pierre and other, we established that dialogue. So everyone knows what their job is, but the city, I would ask and I insist, they should be leading in those areas, not to be left to the community volunteers to take over, because again, it's not everyone trained to be in those situations. But Pierre, one area I didn't hear you talk about, we had brought all the NGOs from the Canadian Armed Forces to the community volunteers, and they have training together, all the NGOs, all the emergency service to get together after the tornadoes in Dunrobin, and we had this training together, and I didn't see it anywhere in your presentation, the large training we did in Penny's Point. And that was so important for everyone to identify. And that's when those people identify community could be great asset, but we had to manage the community's volunteer. So what's your thought about this? Why is not in the report?
Councillor Callian managed the report, and it's probably an oversight that I didn't insert that piece into it. I recognize very much the importance of the linkages to the community, and also this, and when I say articulation of as the community responds, your point that the city still has to lead is very important, but that really is a nuanced event that communities have a real sense of ownership of where they live and their neighborhood. And by the same token, the city has a lot of the, I guess, competencies that are required to deal with these, like especially with respect to safety when you're dealing with hydro or downed trees. So that's really something that we've learned in terms of the discussions within your community with the West Carleton Disaster Relief, that when we're not in an event, that we have to spend time with the communities. So in the Council Organized Ward, it's been with the Woodvale, and we've done it in other wards across the city where there's been a reach out from that group to say, we would like to have a 72-hour plan. Can you help us? And that's been part of our initiative to assist the communities. So I know there's probably hundreds of community associations and church groups that we could help. We've been providing assistance on when they've done the reach out, we've provided the service back to them or assisted them. So thanks for the inquiry. And I appreciate the fact that we didn't incorporate the importance of us training together with the community to understand how important our linkages are. Thank you for that. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Pierre. And I think it's very important, Pierre, to be prepared. If you notice it in early spring this year, we were prepared. We worked with our colleagues in the area where flood might appear, and staff took a leadership in those areas. So my fear is, and I think Councillor Egra went through this as well, when we are not available or we are busy in other area, we saw the community rise to the challenge, but the problem is health and safety, they're not trained. The community is a great asset for information. They know where things are and all, they can help quite a bit, but they're not trained to go deal with power line or gas line or those. So what my advice to all of us as a councillors, we should have those meetings between the community association, the church, whoever active in your community, and bring them like we did in West Carleton and have a role to play. This is your role, this is our role, and let's work together. But you still have to, you can't go to a battlefield without a leader. The city has to be the leader in all those occasions. And that's what I like to insist on training. I know we travel a lot, and every time we travel, they show us how to put the life jacket. Surely to God, you hope you don't have to use it, but I can tell you, the day you're going to put that life jacket in the airplane when 200 people pushing and screaming is different than when you are just showing it for example. So training and more training and more training is needed, not just for the community, but also for our staff. I mean, before 2017, we didn't even have a voice as a councillor who to call and what to call. Like we heard from Councillor Brockington, he has to call the city manager. Really? Like that, I mean, the liaison now, they're doing a great job and we learn from that. And I just want you to know the focus on training, and for us as a councillor to provide the funding for training is very important. And I hope we don't lose sight of that. Just because one year we didn't have a flood, it doesn't mean we should throw all the sandbags in the river and hopefully it doesn't going to happen again, because we heard from other, it's going to happen again. It's just a matter of when. So again, I like to emphasize on the training was happening in Penny's Point, where we saw almost 30 NGOs and governmental working together and establish that dialogue we all benefit from. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor El-Shantiri. I see now a few more hands. So Councillor Meehan is next, followed by Councillor Deans.
Thank you, Chair. I will be brief, and I will just say that Pierre and his team, I think, have done a great job. And in following up on what Councillor El-Shantiri is saying, following the 2018 tornado, Riverside South was, I just like to say, it was a community that said, well, we can't wait. If we have an event like this, God forbid, we have to be ready. So to Riley's point too, the community association worked, and you'll find it's extremely interesting how many people with very particular expertise live in your community. And we came together and devised an emergency response plan for that community, and Pierre and his team are included in that. and have been wonderful to, I think we're integrated. We have not had to use that yet, and I hope that we don't. But our plan is in place, and I'm working on one for Findlay Creek and for Barrhaven East as well. But it is I think it's an essential plan, and that way you know exactly who's going to lead in your community and how it's going to coordinate with the city. It's not that difficult. It just means you just have to get together and refresh it every now and again so that everybody knows what page they're on. So I'll just say thank you, Pierre, for welcoming us in that plan, and we hope we don't have to use it, but it's there. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Meehan. Councillor Deans, did you take your hand down on purpose?
No, I wanted to speak.
Okay, you're next then.
Thank you, Chair Suds. I just wanted to follow up on a few things that my colleagues have touched on, starting with Councillor Brockington. He was talking about Hunt Club not having been identified. And I can tell you the devastation, although maybe not on the same plane as Dunrobin or Arlington Woods, was quite significant in Greenboro. And that was, I think, Environment Canada that sort of left us out of the loop, because Environment Canada did not initially recognize a touchdown in Greenboro. And so like Councillor Brockington, I was on the phone to the city manager saying, like, we've got widespread devastation out here, need some help. And I know the resources were in other places that had been recognized as having a tornado touchdown by Environment Canada. And they eventually did recognize the touchdown in Greenboro, but it took some time. And I can tell you when I went out there, there were trees down, blocking roads everywhere. There were people out with chainsaws. There were hydro lines down. I'm like, I don't know if this is safe. And nobody had any power. Hydro Ottawa was doing an amazing job trying to get the power back on and deal with the wires down. But it was quite a scene out there, and I felt a bit at loose ends at the time, because I know resources were deployed elsewhere, but it seemed like there was no recognition that there was a significant scene going on here, and not a lot of help in sight at the time, except for the locals that came together. And I guess as a member of council at the time, I remember thinking, I wish I had like a hand guide or something to tell me what it is that I need to do, like with a list of phone numbers with city staff that I could contact, or a how-to guide or something that would provide some guidance. Some members of council were organizing meals. I found an open Tim Hortons that had power and took coffee, because nobody had any power. They didn't have coffee, they didn't have food. So, I delivered stuff to people that were out working on the streets, but it was a really sort of an ad hoc effort, especially in those early hours. So when we talk about training, I agree with Councillor El-Shantiri. Training is key. I think some training for members of council might be a good idea too, as leaders in our own communities, and maybe some, maybe a hand guide or something that would at least give us some phone numbers or some key people to connect with, depending on what the situation is, because in those first 48 hours, I felt a bit loose ends, and that we were not being acknowledged. And the one other thing, you talk about communications, which was good, but I did hear retrospectively from a lot of the seniors in the seniors towers in my community that they really felt cut off, because they weren't connected they don't have cell phones, they don't have modern technology necessarily to the same extent that younger generations do. There's no power in those buildings, the elevators are shut down. They don't know what to do, if they need to stay in their units or they should come out. They don't know what's happening because they don't have radio, because there's no power. So I think a plan to address that connectivity with our older residents as well is a good idea. And I think those are all the points that I wanted to raise, unless you have a comment about any of that, Pierre.
Chair Suds, thank you for the inquiry. Just to put this back in context, and I think you mentioned the Environment Canada reporting. So initially we understood Dunrobin had been hit. And then information trickled in about Trent and Arlington. And, honestly, until we heard later that it had touched down both in Hunt Club and Greenboro, it was one of those delays, admittedly, that we didn't know about this. The emergency services were responding, but the city organization as a whole had not caught up to that in the first initial minutes, and absolutely that's true. And when you mention the size and scope of this, when 170,000 people lost their power, the whole community of Barrhaven had no traffic lights as well, and everything had ground to a halt. And it was interesting to see how the size and scope extended from Barrhaven all the way up through Bay Ward, all the way east to Greenboro in your ward, Councillor. And the interesting piece is that it took us a while to understand the size and scope of all of the other impacts that had occurred. Interesting point you bring forward is that on our work plan for this year was to actually have a session with councillors on the emergency management plan and the municipal emergency plan on how we can assist you. And part two is as we mature this councillor liaison, and admittedly years ago, or say in 2017, it took us a couple of days to get that set up so that now we could be in continual contact and provide the 1-800 number to each of the councillors. Well, honestly, in 2018, 2019, didn't realize that the councillor liaison position becomes almost the first priority as we establish something, is that let's get out to all the councillors immediately what the 1-800 number is so that we can actually receive all the information. Collectively throughout the city, there's a real appreciation for the networks that all of the councillors have and how valuable that is to us to operate. That you have the social media contacts, you have the networks within the community associations, you have a lot of the groundwork to get information out. And our ability is to, or what's incumbent upon us is to establish that councillor liaison as fast as we can. And you see through COVID, that was one of the first items that we did. We're up to, I think, 2,200 inquiries on COVID. It really is, there's a whole commitment from the city now on this item. In December of this year, we actually wrote the councillor liaison position into our emergency plan as a requirement, an absolute. So we're absolutely committed to that. I really do have an appreciation for how this the event evolved, and some of the gaps that we had in terms of our service delivery, and some of them were particularly in us receiving information in a timely manner. Like from a life safety point of view, the emergency services, fire, police, paramedics, they continue to respond to all of those events. It was that we didn't have the coordination on the back end. Because I remember, I think I was speaking with you, Councillor, with respect to the high rises on Albion, that as much as I had spoken with Councillor Kavanaugh and the high rises on Ambleside, you had individuals who were in the same predicament that it took us, I think, almost till Sunday for us to do wellness checks on those individuals. Yeah. And this was about, honestly, we couldn't collect enough information fast enough to know the size and the scope in that Friday overnight period. And Saturday was a tough day. And it wasn't until Sunday that we actually started to plant our feet well in terms of how we can move forward. So thank you for the comments. Honestly, that was an incredible learning experience for us in terms of how to collect information so that we can actually deal with items. Everything from the Quarry Co-op in Councillor Brockington's ward to seniors on Ambleside, that honestly, there was a 24-hour delay. To the church in Councillor Aguilar's ward that was already up and running, and we had a disconnect with them for the first 24 hours. Absolutely. So those are kind of the overall learning experiences, and collectively the Office of Emergency Management and the city as a whole has a real appreciation for how we have to get information as quickly as we can so that we can start to mobilize the resources to provide what Councillor Chaltier was talking about, the leadership on the ground with the sensitivity to the local community. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Well, you know, I think with global warming, it may well be that we see more of these kind of events in the future. And unfortunately, we've seen enough that we seem to be getting fairly good at it. You know, although there are lessons learned, I just wanted to leave you with a thank you, because I know the residents, even though we were a little bit late in the response in Greenboro from a city perspective, I think because Environment Canada didn't acknowledge that the touchdown had happened there, I really do think that my residents appreciated the work of the city and how quickly the city responded in many respects. The cleanup was amazing. They put stuff out at the curb and the city took it away. And the residents really did appreciate a lot of the help and support that they received from the city. So thank you for your efforts and your ongoing efforts to ensure that the next time will be an even better response. Thank you, Chair Sutz.
Thank you, Councillor Deans. I see two more hands, so I'm going to go to Councillor Luloff, and then we'll go back to Vice Chair Egley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. While I share some of the same concerns as my colleagues, I would like to thank Mr. Poirier, his team, Jim Lethbridge, Michael Beers, and everybody that worked with us in Orleans on the tornado last year. I felt very well supported. And of course, I'd like to ensure that, you know, through our lessons learned exercise, that my other council colleagues feel as supported as I did. But to echo Councillor Dean's comments about the cleanup efforts and the amount of information that was being passed and the frequency with which it was being passed, I was incredibly impressed. Within 24 hours, you had set up a remote command center that we were able to move around the ward to ensure that the residents that were affected had a place to come and report issues to and get information. We dropped everything, obviously, and spent our entire long days on the ground coordinating with staff and with residents. I was incredibly impressed with how the city came together to help out my residents. So thank you for that. I know that we can always do better, but I know that we were incredibly well served, and I was very impressed with all the teams that were working together during both the tornado that year and the floods. It seems that this term of council has certainly been one for the books when it comes to emergencies with the pandemic, with the flooding, with the tornadoes. And I believe that your team, under the circumstances, has performed incredibly well. And while there's always room for improvement, I wanted to just take a quick moment to thank you for the great work that you've done over the course of the last 2 years. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Luloff. And so now back to Vice Chair Egley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick comment, and then I'd like to give a direction to staff. First of all, I don't disagree with Councillor El-Chanturi that you know, the city needs to take the lead, but there was a gap, and that gap, when there are gaps, they get filled. And then there was that took several days to work to a spot where everybody was comfortable with the working relationship. I also want to echo what Councillor Deans had to say. It would have been wonderful to have a guidebook. I woke up every morning and said, what do I do today? Checked my emails, checked the Twitter feed, saw who was in need, saw where the areas were, and managed on the fly, whether it was a meal for an area that didn't have homes or didn't have power, or it was organizing a town hall to talk about how you can get those trees removed from your front yard, because again, in Trent Arlington, there was such a loss of the forest and the trees. So in that vein, the direction I would like to give to staff is, and sorry, before I go there, and in reference to questions from Councillor El-Chanturi, it came apparent, Mr. Poirier, that you've been working on something you call the 72-hour plan with some of the groups in his area, and I think that sounds like an excellent idea. So becoming aware of it today, what I'd like to propose is twofold. One, that your group, if you will, or your department, provide a 72-hour plan template to members of council. And that's along the lines, I think, what Councillor Brockington was suggesting as well, a 72-hour template plan to members of council that they can share with their community groups. And then if the community groups want to tailor it more, then they can reach out to you directly and set up some meetings, but give them a sense of what's expected of them and what they can do and what they should do in these circumstances. And then again, to follow up on Councillor Dean's, and it sounds like something you already had in the planning anyway, but COVID sort of, threw everything for a bit of a loop, is to provide training and or, and I think I prefer the and as opposed to the or, handbook to councillors to give us some sense of what's available in the city as resources, how we can quickly get a hold of the various people to get those things rolling, whether it be removing a tree, fixing the hydro, getting, helping to organize a meal, whatever it happens to be. If you could be directed to do both those things, and I can put that in writing, Chair, and I looked to you for a timeline. I was going to suggest by the end of first quarter 2021, which gives you a number of months to sort of put that together. So I look to you, Pierre, and possibly to you, Tony, to give me a sense about whether that's an unrealistic timeline. But to me, again, it would give you the fall and part of the winter to put that together and get that to us. Does that work?
Chair Suds, yes, we're able to comply with that timeline, and the requests are reasonable. And absolutely, we'll take that on as directions.
And I will get that. I'll send that in writing then, Chair, to Mark, hopefully before the end of the meeting, and so that can be part of the formal minutes of the meeting. So thank you for that. And one thing I would be remiss is a couple more thank yous as we get closer to the anniversary of the tornado, and certainly, as I said, kudos to the city staff at all levels that were there. But I think we have to acknowledge our local businesses that stood up and provided coffee, as in Councillor Dean's recollection of the events, or free food, or shelter. So the various small businesses and large businesses that came together in our communities, and a huge thank you from my community to the Salvation Army. They were such a support in organizing the meals for people in the communities that were hardest hit. And again, to Councillor Dean's, you don't have a guidebook, so you don't flip it open in page 3 of the Councillor's Guidebook, how to organize in a day a hot meal for 300 people. We don't have that expertise, but they do, and they were so helpful. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that again. It was just couldn't have done it without them. And they were there, they were cheerful, they were helpful, supportive, every positive word you can think of. So I just wanted to share that as well. And again, Chair, I will get that direction to Mark before the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Vice Chair Egley. I do not see any other hands raised. So again, a thank you, Pierre, to you and your team. Thank you for bringing the report forward today as well. I think this is an important discussion. So with that, is the report received? Okay, received. Fantastic. Thank you very much. So now we are moving to number 4, the Ottawa Fire Services 2019 Annual Report. I know that GM DeMonte and Chief Ayette are available for questions. So just looking for any hands raised, questions on this report. And I am seeing, I'll go to Councillor Meehan first, and then Councillor Kavanagh.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I really just have one question. I want to thank the staff for the report. When it talks about response times, do you break it down into incidents? Like how many active working fires were responded to in 2019? in comparison to some of the other activities. I'd like to know that.
Thank you, Chair Suds. Yeah, happy to report that in document 1, the data document attached to the report, it does break it down into incident types. And so for 2019, we had 1,700 working fires. And then the chart also identifies other types of incidents that we've had.
Thank you. I don't know how I missed that, but I'll take another look at it. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Councillor Meehan. And next I'll go to Councillor Kavanaugh.
Well, thank you very much, Chief Elliott, for the report. As you know, we've had a conversation recently, including Councillor Fleury and Councillor King, and that is about working on diversity and getting more women into the fire services. We saw the graduation picture, and it just wasn't good enough yet. And I know you've got the program for the young women, and we talked about this in terms of recruiting more at different stages, and more mentoring was one of the recommendations that we came up with. But I just wondered if there's anything since the report that's being worked on in terms of recruitment on diversity and inclusion.
Yes, thank you for that question. Through you, Chair Suds. As we've indicated in our recent meeting, we need to engage groups such as the group that you had as the liaison for women and gender equity, and Councillor Ralston from the Anti-Racism and Ethnocultural Relations Initiative. And we need to start having more diverse people at the discussion table. It's two-pronged, really. It comes out to outreach. How do we attract people to come to our organization? It's not just an Ottawa fire problem, it's a fire service problem. We've done some incremental steps, and I think everyone would acknowledge that it hasn't moved fast enough, and we need to look at that and look at other options. The programs that we've used, we've increased our outreach. So, for example, out of the 2,000 applicants we had for the last go around, we had 20%, or not 20%, 10% that were women. And each of the last classes, we've had 10% that are women. 10% isn't the number we want to reach. It's got to be closer to market availability, and market availability for fire service, for women in the fire service, is 17%. So, but it's much better than the 3% we used to have. But we still have a lot of work to do, and I think that it's two-pronged, as I indicated. It's outreach, it's getting people attracted to the organization at a very earlier on in their development, so early in high school, and start to show them that Ottawa Fire is a job for everyone, and it's a very appealing job, and it's great to help your community. And so our outreach needs to focus on that. And then secondly, more immediate, is our recruitment process. And the recent class only had 3 female firefighters out of the 20 or 16 that we've had. And I agree with you, we need to do more work, and we need to do it quicker. The challenge really is how do we attract more people to the organization. The auditor also identified that our recruitment process was inefficient and needed to be looked at. So we are currently in a review process, and we're very close to actually implementing a new recruitment process that will assist with having qualified people come to the table. So I know, Councillor Kavanaugh, you've indicated in the past that out of the 200, certainly several of them are qualified. Why don't we just pick the qualified people? And the challenge with that is that we don't know that they're qualified until they go through the entire process. Whereas the new process will allow us to identify qualified people through education and through competencies and testing prior to our interviews. So I think we're going to be in a better position, and I look forward to increasing those.
On a positive note, I noticed a promotion of a woman, Louise Heinz-Schmidt, who just got promoted to Chief of Safety, and she lives in my neighborhood, so I know of her. But that's great news, and I hope we can do more mentoring with the success stories that are out there, because there's I think there is opportunities, and I think we can get some great recruits, both in the diversity and on inclusion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That is a great news story. In fact, we have 3 division chiefs, which are very high-ranking positions within Ottawa Fire Service, and in very near future, all 3 of them will be women. So we currently have our Division Chief of Communications, Colleen Woolsey. As indicated, starting next week, Louise Heinz-Schmidt will be our Division Chief of Safety. And right now, our acting Division Chief, who's on the promotional list to be promoted, Gwen Lewis, for prevention. And so 3 very senior positions, which will all be filled by women in the very near future. One other note on our diversity initiative, we currently have a recruit class of volunteer firefighters, and we have a very high number of women applying for that. So the shift is starting to happen. We now see we have approximately 20% of our new recruit volunteers are women, which is great, which is over market availability. So for us, these are positive signs, but we also recognize we still have some work to do.
Great, and it is good to communicate out those success stories. People like Louise, they didn't come through the back office; they were on the trucks. So I think it's a good story to tell everybody, and to encourage other women. They need mentoring. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you, Councillor Kavanagh. Any further questions on the reports? Councillor Fleury? Oh, yeah. Apologies.
Sorry about that, Madam Chair. I had to step away for a second. I wanted to come back to Councillor Kavanagh. I want to thank the Chief. We've had a recent meeting with himself and General Manager DeMonte on the matter of diversity and women in the workforce. You know, I guess I'm not. It's not a question on that matter. Simply to think that we have to go beyond the existing programs, and we have to set very aggressive goals to be able to achieve them. So, you know, I was appreciative of the time and hope that the approach that was discussed can be implemented. Want to follow up on 2 elements of the annual report. It talks about an upgrade to the paging system, and my ears were ringing when I heard the word paging. Can we explain how that works? Are we using email? Are we using phone numbers? I recognize there are safety measures, but I wonder if we just used the wrong word here, or if it's still truly the old pager.
Thank you for that question, Chair Suds. No, we still use pagers, and here's the issue: is the paging system is for our volunteer firefighters. It's our sole method of actually getting them to respond from wherever they are. We've had many discussions over the years of why are we still using pagers instead of cell phones and issuing cell phones. And what we've discovered is the cell phone network still isn't robust enough in cases of emergencies where it doesn't get overloaded, and then we have no way of contacting our volunteers. So the paging system is a publicly owned, or is our own paging system, and it is very robust, and it actually allows us to actually page no matter what's going on in the cell networks. And with the towers, our paging system always works, although our current one is out of sync and end of life, and it's actually a couple of years end of life. So we're keeping it together with bits and pieces, but we do need to get a new system. And we've debated this over and over again, and the paging system is still the most reliable way of contacting our volunteers to get them to respond.
Wow, who would have thought? Who would have thought? I hope that the electrical tape still works on those wires to keep it going, because I understand the importance of reaching the members. One last year, we had in your annual report and a number of media coverage, the pilot or research program that you have with the University of Ottawa in terms of the wellness of the firefighters. And it's always top of mind to me to make sure that, yes, when the call comes, that our team members are able to go out there, do the work, but also being sensitive to their health. Do you have anything new on that front? Are we equipping? I remember last year, I believe it was this double sets of equipment for each firefighter, or correct me if I'm wrong, but there were measures in place. Can you give us a bit of a scan of that research, and particularly the purchase of the equipment?
Thank you, Chair Suds. Once again, a great question. One of my top priorities is the mental health and wellness and fitness of our firefighters. They they use themselves as the tools of the job. They are our most important asset. People think that we spend a lot of money on fire trucks and tools, etc., but without really competent firefighters, we struggle. And I got to tell you, Ottawa is very lucky to have the best fire service in North America, as far as I'm concerned, and I'm very proud of each and every one of them. That being said, we need to look out for their mental health, and we were lucky through the championing of GM de Monte and the University of Ottawa to take part in this study. It's a $600,000 research study where they've initiated a clinic, and they're taking in some of the members to see whether or not there's a future need for such a clinic, or whether it can fit within the current medical profession as it exists today with OHIP, etc. So that study is still ongoing, and we hope to have an update on that soon. With regards to other safety items, sorry, Councillor.
I was going to say on the equipment itself, like post-fire, having the washing, like that was another component of research that I'd read from you in the past.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. Contamination from fire, people think that it's just the flames and the heat that cause the damage, but what really causes the cancers is the way in which those toxins get into your body, whether it's through your skin or through your the bunker gear, etc. Nothing's infallible and nothing's perfect. So for that, we need to make sure that we take decontamination steps. We have a decontamination process in place at the scenes where they clean off all of their bunker gear. Again, with every step that we take, there's another issue that arises. So, once you clean the bunker gear and it's wet, you can't use it for the next fire because it causes all kinds of, scalding heat issues and other challenges. So most departments in Canada, not all, but several of the larger departments in Canada have gone to 2 sets of bunker gear. We are we are moving forward on that initiative. So we're hoping that by early next year, everyone will have 2 sets of bunker gear. So we continue to move forward on that. With regards to decontamination, and the other thing is that they have their station wear that they work in, and they wear it under their bunker gear, and it's also saturated with toxins. And then in the past we'd say, well, just bring it home and wash it with your family's clothing, and obviously I can't agree to that. So we've started placing simple washing machines in each of the stations in order to try and mitigate some of those challenges. The challenge we have is that there's no new money for this. So obviously we have to manage within our current budget and use the envelope we have and move it around. And so other things in the past that have happened every year are now, being delayed. It's not an ideal situation, but we also respect the fact that the city's doing everything it can to support us. And as a manager, it's my responsibility to be more sophisticated with our budget and how we use it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fleury. I see Vice Chair Eglai.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And first of all, thank you, Chief Ayotte, to you and your leadership team and everybody in the service. I think you go a long way towards making us feel safe in our city. So much appreciated for the work that you all do. And in that vein, it's not directly related to your report, but we have you here. So I'm just wondering how the service is coping with providing the work that you do on a daily basis with COVID, and whether you feel that you have what you need in terms of PPE and what have you for your service members as they carry out their daily duties.
Thank you, Chair Suds. Another great question. Thank you, Councillor Eglai. It's a challenging time for all of us, and I know we hear that every day from everyone we speak to. From our perspective, PPE has always been a concern, having N95s, but also recognizing that our partners in the medical profession, including our paramedics and our doctors and nurses in hospitals, did require the N95s early on. So we made a decision to go on our SCBA, which is our air breathing apparatus, which we use in fires, etc., for medical calls. It's been a very, very difficult summer for our firefighters in that it's very hot, it's very cumbersome. It weighs 80 pounds as opposed to a mask that weighs not even a tenth of a pound. And we know that we're very thankful for all the work that our partners in emergency management have been doing with regards to trying to secure us some N95s. There have been some struggles along those fronts. I think we're getting closer to it. So yeah, it's not an easy time. Everyone's looking out for themselves. We had to take very aggressive measures in the stations for protocols for cleaning, and we've kept the stations off limit to the public. And so a lot of our public education initiatives, even though we're doing it virtually, doesn't have the same effect as if instead of going into schools and being able to interact with the kids on our first line of defense, which is public education. And so yeah, it's been challenging. I got to tell you, and again, I can't say enough how proud I am of our members and of our staff and everyone in all of our divisions, be it fire prevention, our communicating dispatchers, our frontline firefighters, our maintenance officers. We can go on, safety division, etc. Everyone's done a fabulous job, and we continue to touch wood that we continue to be safe during this difficult time.
Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you, Vice Chair Eglai. I don't believe there are any other hands raised, so no further questions. Thank you again very much, Chief Ayat, for being here today, but of course, more importantly, for all the great work underway. With that, is the report received? Received. Terrific. Thank you. So moving on then to number 5, amendments to enhance the enforcement of the smoking and vaping bylaw. And if I recall correctly, Councillor Fleury had questions on this.
I do. I want to thank staff for bringing this forward. Just for the record, wanted to understand clearly, the numbers are there, from the number of inspection to the number of charges to the number of establishments that are challenging. Thank you, Roger, for sharing those numbers. Just want to get an insight. So obviously you're seeing the need for property owners to be involved in this. Can you maybe give us we've gotten to this point because it is not working, or we're getting non-compliance? Why is the ask coming today?
Yes, thank you for the question, Madam Chair. The concern for us is that, back in 2016, we were identified 17 known establishments at the time. We were able to, through enforcement efforts and leveraging other enforcement mechanisms that we have, using AGCO, our business licenses, if they had a food premise license, we were able to suspend food premise licenses. We got down to about 5 establishments. We've seen in the last year to 18 months where we've seen an increase in establishments, and now we're dealing with over 20 known establishments again. So it's had some impacts on resources, of course, trying to get into these places every night. And we have engaged property owners in the past to say that, we need some help here. It's you've got an operation, a business that's operating on your property that's illegal and not permitted. But the feedback that we're getting from those property owners is that, if you can't do something under the bylaw, how are we supposed to evict? So we did take this under consideration, and in reviewing this, we think it's time now to hold the property owners accountable. So this will help the property owners, if they get into a legal process where they have to evict tenants, but also, it gives us another enforcement mechanism whereby we can charge the property owner as well.
Great. Thanks for the update, and fully supportive of the measure.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Councillor Fleury. I'm not seeing any other hands raised. So with that, is the report carried?
Carried.
Carried. Terrific. Thank you. Moving on now to item number 6, which is the Crime Prevention Ottawa Annual Action Report from 2019. I believe we do have the Executive Director, Nancy Worsfold, with us to lead the presentation along with Councillor Deans.
Okay, thank you. I think I'm going to start, Chair Suds. For many of us in the city, the last 6 months have been a period of upheaval, of adjusting to our new reality under COVID, and of coming to terms with racial injustice. It's also been a period of hope, one where we've seen the community come together to rally for Black Lives Matter and have important discussions around racial equality. We've watched neighbors and complete strangers taking a caring community approach to COVID right here in our city. In the context of these uncertain times, I'm here to present some good news as my role of Chair of Crime Prevention Ottawa. Today, I'm tabling CPO's 2019 Annual Action Report. It details CPO's activities and achievements for the year, including its work in the areas of youth, gender-based violence, and crime-affected neighborhoods. I want to draw particular attention to two important outcomes of CPO's work. Both are areas in which Ottawa is leading the way with forward-thinking approaches to crime prevention and community safety. One of the outcomes is detailed in a report we're tabling called Unwanted Guests: How Ottawa Uncovered and Addressed the Problem of Home Takeovers. Home takeovers are a real problem in our city, and we are hearing they're even a greater concern during COVID when residents are isolated. They happen when a guest who is invited into a home takes it over, using the home for illegal activities like drug dealing and sex trafficking, and or abusing the person who invited them in. These situations put vulnerable people at risk, and they are terrifying. They are also very complex to manage. Since 2013, CPO has worked with partners across the city to identify the problems of home takeovers, give it a name, and develop training videos, posters, and handouts. They ran 150 training sessions. The result has been a real systems level change in how these situations are handled. The second reason I'm here is to share the story of Time for Change, the city's gang intervention program. Last year, CPSC suggested that we conduct a cost-benefit analysis of the program, and CPO has followed through. The study was conducted by Shoshana Moss, a chartered professional accountant who has worked for KPMG and the city's Auditor General. Shoshana joins us here today to share the results, and I would like to turn the presentation over to her now. Shoshana. You just need to unmute. Okay.
Hi, thank you, Councillor Deans, and thank you also to Nancy Worsfold and the crime prevention team for the opportunity to be part of this very interesting project. The Time for Change program is part of the Ottawa Street Violence and Gang Strategy. The program helps young men involved in criminal activity and the gang lifestyle to lead better lives. Next slide, please. Time for Change reaches out to these young men at strategic points in their lives, such as when they're taken into custody or recovering from a shooting. Close to 400 people were referred to Time for Change between its launch in 2015 and April 2019. Referrals came from the police, the criminal justice system, social agencies, and the community. 108 people, almost all men, have participated in T4C. Those that did not participate were, if they were willing, referred to other programs and connected to resources. Caseworkers help participants find jobs, learn or improve life skills and solve problems, and connect to health, housing, education, training, and spiritual support. Next slide, please. We've completed a cost-benefit analysis of Time for Change, and here's what we found. Time for Change is working. It is reducing criminality among participants, and it's helping to make the city safer for everyone. Now let's look at the results. Next slide, please. Research tells us that offenders who are not employed with a stable job are 2.5 times more likely to return to custody with a new offense than offenders with a stable job. Participants said that the support they received through the program is keeping them out of custody. And in our analysis of Time for Change, we found that participants received 55% fewer new charges than what we would usually expect without this type of program, together with a 61% drop in violent crimes. Next slide, please. This chart shows how T4C reduced costs to the criminal justice system and reduced reoffense rates. After a critical incident, participants had the choice to join T4C or to proceed without intervention. The top path shows the decision not to join T4C. Research indicates that at least 30% would have been expected to reoffend. The bottom path shows the decision to join T4C. Only 13% reoffended. That's a drop of 17 percentage points. This includes a significant drop in violent offenses. Now, what was the monetary benefit? The reoffenses expected from the decision not to join T4C would have cost $1.97 million. On the T4C path, we can see the cost of the reoffenses after joining T4C is $895,000. This shows that by taking the T4C path, there's just over a $1 million reduction in costs. Next slide, please. More specifically, here's the math behind the numbers. Time for Change saves just over $1 million to the criminal justice system. After subtracting the actual cost of the program, this means a net savings of $750,000. That's a return on investment of $3.37 for every dollar invested. Note that the average cost per participant in the program is $6,921. Next slide, please. As a program with social and economic outcomes, the benefits extend far beyond cost savings to the justice system. The benefits of T4C include increased feelings of safety in the community, families who can reconnect positively with those who have chosen to change their lives, and reduced victimization. Next slide, please. Thank you once again, Chair Suds. At this point, Nancy Worsfold and I are available for questions, and we also have Kim McAlpin here from the John Howard Society.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And I see Vice Chair Egley has his hand up.
Yes, thank you. I just curious as to the last couple of slides where you talked about savings to the justice system. How's justice system defined? And are there any direct savings to the city as a result of this program?
If I may, Chair Suds, what Shoshana was calculating was the justice system, including policing, corrections, and courts. So the savings to the city is through the policing portion of that. We did not attempt a social benefit calculation, which would have taken a whole PhD thesis, but we believe that there are far more financial benefits to the reductions in victimization. But the actual financial calculation that we were able to do focused on the justice system, part of which is policing, which is municipal, the rest of which is senior levels of government.
Yeah, Nancy, don't get me wrong. I think the program is fabulous, and I think it's timely. With all our discussions that are happening right across the country, right across North America about whether to defund the police or not to defund the police, or what that means, how that can work, I think this is a program that shows how monies can be spent in a different way and to great advantage. So no, I was more curiosity than anything else. I think the program is great. And my next question was going to be, and I don't know if you can answer it or Chair Deans can answer it, what's the future of this program? Are we going to continue it? Are we going to enhance it? Are we going to put more resources into it? Because it certainly sounds like a success story. And again, it goes down that path of dealing with social issues and crime in our community, but in a very different way, and from every indication, a very constructive and productive way. So what's the future of the program?
Chair Deans? Crime Prevention Ottawa is in a strategic planning process, which you might want to.
Yeah, we're just starting our strategic planning process, and I think that we will look at assessing all of our programs and where we're getting the best value for the limited dollars that Crime Prevention Ottawa has. Obviously, this program is a success. It's a bit of a downstream program compared to most of our programs, which are more on the early end of prevention. I mean, this is a kind of prevention, but it's after an offense. So it's a different kind, and it is a reasonably costly program. I don't speak for the board because we haven't at this point determined our future priorities for strategic planning exercise, but my best guess would be that they would want to continue the program in a similar vein to it's currently running. And I know that John Howard Society is on the call as well, but maybe Nancy, you can look at the length of the contract that we have with John Howard Society.
Our contracts are year by year.
And thank you for that, Chair Deans. I mean, you're in a unique position, right? You're chairing the police board and you're also chairing crime prevention. And so that gives you a very wide lens to look at all the options and alternatives and funding questions and issues. So appreciate you having you back and having you in both of those chairs to look at this. And I do accept and obviously acknowledge that this is sort of an after the fact intervention, but nonetheless it seems to be working, and you know, we're obviously not catching everybody at the beginning, but if we can catch some of them further along the path and set them on a different path, like this program is doing, you know, I think that's great. And you know, for what it's worth, I don't sit on crime prevention, but if you can find a way to continue this program or perhaps even enhance it, I think that would be money well spent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Councillor McKenney.
Thank you, Chair. My line of questioning was very similar to Councillor Egli, and I just note when I look at the report that you know, that the indicators are still under development, and you know that there's still further work to do to be able to refine like what the outcomes are. But I think that it's evident that it is where we need to move towards. You know, the conversation's been happening now over the years, especially over the last few months, around how we redirect funding, how we redirect resources into more prevention and more social and mental health services. So I guess, you know, just one quick follow-up, just wonder what the scalability of the program is. So, you know, we are going into city budget, and I think that while I understand that there's still work to do to understand the final outcomes, you know, what we're seeing is certainly quite encouraging. And I just wonder how, you know, where are you at? Like, what is the scale of the project now, and you know, what do you need to scale it up, and what would that look like? If we all started asking for it, what would that look like?
I'm just wondering if the person on the call from the John Howard Society is best positioned to answer that. I mean, you have to appreciate the nature of this. We're working with individuals that are coming out of the criminal justice system and trying to put them on a better path. And it's a very sort of labor intensive thing, and not everyone wants our intervention. So maybe if we can just turn it over to the John Howard Society to talk about the potential for scaling it up if that were to be the desire.
Good morning. My name is Allison Newson. I'm the Director of Child and Youth Services with the John Howard Society of Ottawa, and T4C falls under my umbrella. Thank you, Madam Chair and Council, for having us here today, and to Nancy and Shoshana for that report. To answer the question, Councillor, in terms of scalability, it's certainly something that our agency would be willing to consider. I think part of that obviously would be the resource aspect of it in terms of additional staffing, and that sort of thing, but it's definitely something that we could consider moving forward. We continue to work with our community partners, which is an important part of the program, so that would need to continue the way that it works now. But overall, certainly something we would consider.
Okay, thank you for that. I appreciate it. And of course, I'm a huge fan of John Howard Society, and it's nice to see you here. Just one other quick question, and you know, maybe it can't be answered today, but do we have what we need, you know, to scale it up? Do we have the information that we need today, outside of resources, funding resources, which is our problem? It's it's what we bring to the table. Do we have the information that we need today, and the detail in the program that we need to be able to scale it up if we were looking towards that?
I think that I believe that we do, and I think that we are always, we always want to follow best practice, and we are an evidence-based organization, so we always want to know what's the new evidence, what are the new indicators that we should be looking for. So there are training aspects to it, and information sharing, but I do think that we have a lot of that and best practice to date that would allow us to look at scaling.
And
yeah, oh, go ahead, sorry.
Chair Suds, if I may, the Time for Change program is one of about 10 different programs which come together to form this overall Ottawa street violence and gang strategy. So to answer the question of needs within the broad range of the pillars of the strategy, which include healthy neighborhood cohesion, early prevention, intervention, and enforcement, is a complex question that we haven't ever done a calculation of. We've never done a blue sky calculation imagining in the best of all worlds what we could spend. We've always sought to bring together resources from senior levels of government with the local to work together in a coordinated manner on our highest risk young men together in that sense. But we have not done a calculation on the overall possibilities of the street violence and gang strategy with all of its dimensions.
Mm-hmm. No, I hear you. And I mean, we asked for that a couple of years ago when we were grappling with our housing crisis and homelessness. And we said to staff, you know what, maybe you don't have it, maybe you'll never be able to get it, but bring us the number that will end homelessness, that will significantly reduce core housing need. And we got that. Yeah, it's like just over $2 billion. It's a lot of money, but at least we know, and we know what we know how to, what we need to march towards now. And so, I look at this and I think much the same, like, yeah, not asking, you may not be asking for it all at once, but something to consider, and maybe future conversations that we should have. So thank you for this today. It's very encouraging.
Terrific. Thank you, Councillor McKenney. Councillor Kavanagh.
Yes, thank you very much, and welcome back to the chair, to Chair Deans. And this is great you're here for this presentation. Great work. As you know, I'm very concerned about gangs and the community, and lots of work to do. Once people get into them, it's like what happens after, and trying to get them out. We need all the programs we can. So I very, very much appreciate this. And we, as Councillor McKenney said, I would like to see us build more. I have a question. In terms of girls or women, are we looking at any programs for them as well? I know it's dominated by young men in terms of the gangs, but we do see a lot of young women turning to crime. And not getting their lives together as well. So is there any work on that? And I realize this is on the John Howard Society, but if you have any information on that.
Chair Suds, I would throw this over to Allison. Often the girls are seen as both victims and offenders. Often they're in a situation of being trafficked. And so I'll throw it over to Allison.
Thank you, Nancy. That's exactly correct. We do have other programs within our agency that look to support young women, whether they're gang involved or kind of on the periphery of that. So we have supportive housing for young women. We have human trafficking support for young women. So we try to address that through our various programs, but not necessarily directly through the T4C program.
Okay. Do we have enough, not to get too much off topic, but do we have enough resources in those programs? Because it's obviously a big category as well.
It surely is, yes. I mean, housing is a big component of that. Part of our success with the human trafficking programs that we have, they're kind of run through our housing programs. So we're always certainly looking for additional resources and additional housing and opportunities. That's something we will always pursue. And the need is definitely there. We see the rise of that more and more. So we see the need, and we're open to any opportunities that come available.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and I appreciate this work. One thing I'm looking at in Bay Ward is a task force on youth because of the issues we've had. It just and COVID is just making it worse, and I imagine you're feeling that. How are the effects of COVID on this program and reaching out to young people?
It's been a challenge indeed. I mean, engagement is kind of a core component of the program. Our caseworkers put a lot of effort into engagement. This can be, they're very complex clients where engagement is very, very difficult. So COVID added kind of an extra layer to that in terms of difficulty. We've been very creative as an agency in assuring that we're still reaching out to these folks, offering support and continuing the support that's already offered. So a lot of virtual ways that we've done that. Since we've entered into stage 2 and 3, we've been able to open that up a little bit, so our caseworkers are able to see folks again in the community using, of course, PPE and all the necessary protocols. So it's definitely challenging, but we're making it work, and the clients have responded very positively to the things we've put in place.
Okay, thank you very much, and keep up the great work, and thank you, Nancy, to you and your whole team.
Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you, Councillor Kavanagh. I'm not seeing any other hands. So with that, is the report carried?
Carried.
Carried. Fantastic. And thank you again, Nancy and Allison and your teams and Chair Deans for all the great work that you've undertaken in the last year. We look forward to seeing you at committee again next year. Thank you.
Thank you.
So moving on in the agenda, next there's no in-camera items. We do have one IPD, and that is the pawnbrokers and secondhand goods bylaw review that has been circulated. Are there any notices of motion for subsequent meetings? Seeing none, are there any inquiries? And I believe Councillor Fleury, go ahead.
I do have 2 inquiries. Merci, Madam Chair. One, so this is the first inquiry. With the increase of individuals sleeping rough and the increase in outreach services deployed by the city this summer, can the city provide a review of the street outreach efforts? This review should include the goals of the program, total funds allocated, number of interactions, number of clients supported, all with any gaps, along with any gaps or challenges that exist in connecting individuals with existing services and preventing outdoor encampments. And then the second inquiry, COVID has exposed gaps in daytime, evening, weekend programming for those in our community who are experiencing homelessness and who are vulnerably housed? Can the city specify what funding is allocated towards barrier-free programs that allow for drop-ins programming, specifically serving those who are homeless and vulnerably housed during the day, evening, and weekends?
Oh, terrific. Thank you very much. Councillor Fleury, are there any other inquiries? Okay, seeing none. Is there any other business? Seeing none. Okay, on adjournment, is the motion carried?
Carried.
Terrific, carried. So we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy your day. The next meeting for CPSC is scheduled for October 15th. All right. Thank you, everyone.